works. I have a couple of my adult kids living at home. But I was bored. And, every year I'd stop and ride my bike, my motorcycle. I would go to Reno and then Las Vegas, and I would stop and see my friend, Art Bell, for a few hours. And last year, I think it was like in October of last year, I get a phone call. And, sometimes I go months without hearing from Art, and then sometimes I get a couple of calls in a month, or some texts. It was, we weren't close friends, but we were friends for many years. But, he asked me if I was going to come up and see him again, and I said, I don't know, my health, I don't know. But I was telling him how bored I was, and he said, hey, look, you need to get back into radio. And I said, I don't know. I don't think I could go back into mainstream radio. I've been out of mainstream radio for a while. And I didn't know if I wanted to get back into it. And he goes, no. Internet radio. I go, internet radio? I didn't ever even give it any thought. Last October, I didn't even pay attention to internet radio, to be honest with you. So, he planted the seed in my mind. And so I said, okay, I'll get back with you in a day or two. And I'll ask you more questions about it, because he was doing, or he did do internet radio, Midnight in the Desert, before he passed it on to Heather Wade. But it was rather interesting. I went on the internet and I started listening to all these shows on the paranormal. And I'll be honest with you, there's thousands of internet shows on the radio and podcasts and live shows and all this stuff. But then I started weeding out the ones, honestly, that sounded like they were being done on their kitchen table, if you know what I mean, where they were sitting back at their kitchen table with a bunch of people and talking about ghost boxes and drinking beer and swearing. So I eliminated those type of shows. And then I started, listening just to a couple of the shows. I go, well, gee, I could do that. So, I got a hold of Art back, and he told me what type of equipment I needed to get and what I needed to do and how to promote myself and, things like that. And I got back into it. And I got into it probably better than a lot of people at the start, because he gave me a list of equipment I should have to do a decent quality sounding show. And, it was a big time. I mean, the first, probably, I'll be honest with you, it wasn't even, first 10 months of doing this show, I really sucked. And I still probably suck. Because I was trying to find myself, going from doing top 40 and then doing talk shows, when I was working in a radio station, it was quite a bit different. I mean, I had an engineer, I had the sales, marketing people, I had all these people, and I didn't even have, when I did my on talk shows in radio, I didn't have to look for guests. I mean, somebody found me the guests and gave me all the information and the interview. Well, when you start a show like this yourself, you put the studio together yourself, every nut and bolt and wire. You find each guest, then you have to sit there and research each guest. And it was a lot of work. And then, the first 10 months of doing the show, I was trying to find myself, because I was out of broadcasting for almost 10 years. It took me about 10 months to find myself. For some people, they probably would have found themselves right away. And for them, I congratulate you. I mean, I really do. But for me, it took 10 months. And then all of a sudden, I realized, I don't want to do mystics every single day. I mean, I don't mind doing mystics once or twice a month. That's fine. But I want to go, how can I say it? The way talk radio was back in the 90s and the early 2000s, where it was like Art told me it should be entertainment and informative. And it should be fun. Not just for the audience, fun for me. And like 2 months ago, I was like, maybe I had an out-of-body experience, but it hit me in the middle of the night. I saw 10 months of what I was doing wrong and how I was doing the show. And, and it seemed like I wasn't going the way I wanted to go with the show. Well, then 2 months ago, something clicked. I started changing. And then a month ago, I really started changing how I do the show. I got a little bit more aggressive like I used to be years ago. But the audience, you guys out there listen to Night Dreams, just started jumping on board like crazy. I mean, it went from, a few listeners at the start then to, a good size audience. And now, I mean, we're talking about around 160 to 170,000 per episode of my show, which is a live broadcast. Now, I'm not saying there's 160, 170,000 people listening right at when I'm talking, but they download it and then on-demand plays. Those two things is where a lot of people are listening at a later time. And, then I started looking at from our server and then on all the different apps, like how many people are listening. And then I started looking at, hey, 40% of our audience is coming out of the UK. And I want to thank you guys for making that happen. And then about 3 weeks ago, I noticed we're starting to get a big audience out of Australia. And then naturally, we got a lot of truckers out there. And I want to say thank you to all you guys out there, moving that stuff around the country, in those long rides, haul rides at night. I'm glad you're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio. And I've had a lot of people say, look, Gary, we want it back. Like UFOs, Bigfoot, government conspiracies, stuff that is interesting that you can't find on a regular basis on the other shows. Yeah, I mean, they do talk about it occasionally, but that's what it is, occasionally. And I didn't realize there was a big demand for Bigfoot, UFOs, aliens, government conspiracies, global weather, earth changes. But there is. And also, if you want to hear a topic that we haven't been talking about with a guest, well, why don't you send me an email? You certainly can at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com. That's nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com. I read every email and every text I get. I'll be honest with you. I take my daughter to work at 5 o'clock in the morning. I come home and I spend 2 hours before I take a nap reading all the texts and emails I get from the UK and Australia, Japan, and all those places at night. And I try to answer as many as I humanly can. And, and it's overwhelmingly, wanting to know, even ghost hunting. But that's kind of simmered down a little bit. It's more into, right now, I hate to say it, UFOs and Bigfoot is really a hot subject. And that's what I got planned for the next couple months, is a lot of great guests on UFOs and conspiracies, government conspiracies with UFOs. I mean, we have had some great guests like Stephen Bassett and all these people on our show. And I plan to have a lot more. In fact, I do got a lot of great guests booked all the way up through October on Night Dreams Talk Radio. Well, I'm going to get out of here. But again, I want you to tune in this Friday. And we got a ghost hunting group on Friday. And that was perfectly planned. Because at 9:30 Pacific West Coast time, you can call in at 1-253-203-6695. We want to hear your scary stories. And on Halloween, it's going to be 2 hours of scary stories. So, hey, research it, come up with a great scary story. Maybe you'll win a prize. Well, I'm going to jump out of there. Again, I want to thank Anthory Hamilton for being our guest tonight. Mental time travel. I do agree that we do have out-of-body experiences in our life. And I think a lot of people actually see things in the future. I think that's why we have airplanes. That's why we have jets. That's why we have everything we have now, because people are able to see the future to come up with that. So everybody, I want you to have a great evening. Stay out of trouble. And we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Please check out the Night Dreams Talk Radio website at www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. Also, if you want to keep our show free of advertising, just hit the donate button. Give a buck or two. Remember, all prior shows are always free to listen to. We at Night Dreams Talk Radio thank you for your support. Night Dreams, Scary Story Night on Friday nights. Call in at 9:30 p.m. Pacific at 1-253-203-6695.
There once was a man who had some land in eastern Washington. And on his land, this man, he had a deep dark hole upon. People came from miles around to throw their trash down in to see how deep the hole was and listen for its end.
Do you have a paranormal story you want to share on Night Dreams Talk Radio? You could be a guest. Email us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com.